You're listening to the Warriors of Dystonia podcast, a podcast sharing the stories and journeys of people whose lives are affected by dystonia. My name is Carl, and I've had cervical dystonia since 2007. I started this project to spread awareness of the condition, as well as reminding those in the dystonia community that they are not alone. In 2021, I released a book called Warriors of Dystonia that collects first-hand experiences of people all over the world who have been affected by dystonia. You can find the book on lulu.com, that's LULU.com, as well as Amazon. All profits from sales go to dystonia charity and research. Now, onto the podcast. In this episode of the Warriors of Dystonia podcast, I had the pleasure of chatting to Tim, who was kind enough to share the journey and experiences of his son Ellis, who has generalised dystonia.
I'm Tim, one of four boys, and then followed up with having three boys. I'm from Cardiff, or we're based in Cardiff, your home country being Wales, so that's quite a nice link between the two of us.
Absolutely.
I'm currently a caretaker at a primary school in Cardiff, a school that I used to go as a kid, so that's quite mad. I'm still involved in education. I was a qualified teacher, teaching design technology, then became a TA, one adapting with stresses of life, but also stresses of Ellis as he kind of deteriorated. So the job's changed to allow me to care for Ellis a bit more. So yeah, I was a TA, and then I had a good friend that I was a TA at the school with, who was a caretaker, and quite liked what he was doing, the outdoors, meeting lots of people, and I thought, right, I'll take that on, and that's where I am now, and it allows me a lot of time in between early shifts and late shifts to do stuff with Ellis and hopefully get involved in things like what we're doing today, you know, trying to raise awareness of dystonia.
And can you tell us a little bit more about Ellis?
Ellis is the eldest out of the three lads. He's got Jack and Ocean. Ellis is 15, and the other two, 11 and 9. And Ellis is a lovely boy. I say that of all my boys, but Ellis in particular has shown how to deal with problems such as dystonia with a smile. He's always smiled as a child. That kind of ability to just shrug off the pain that he goes through smiling, through humour. So he's a happy lad. He's currently in a special school, so was in mainstream up until 2 years ago, or a year ago, sorry, and is now in a special school due to how dystonia has changed his life and his ability to learn. He loves coin collecting, loves litter picking. Started this in his junior school just as a thing that he did at dinner time. He loves the Xbox. He loves, like most teenagers, TV, especially humour. And again, humour is the thing that really helps him cope with life. He's a sociable lad, particularly so with adults. I think they understand him. He can't talk currently. He used to be able to, and he just wins a lot of people over with his smile.
What sort of dystonia is it? In what way does it affect him, Tim?
He's got generalised dystonia. So it started off as a kind of Parkinson's-like tremor. So he'd have a little shake in his hand. And within maybe a year and a half, it progressed to full-on body dystonic movements. Just change over time, whether that's down to the medication or his state, you know, what kind of stresses that he's being put through. But a lot of the time it's full body limb movements, and lately a lot is focalized on the mouth as well. So, you know, his lips and his tongue can be tremoring quite a bit. He does suffer quite badly from them. They're painful, and it has reduced his ability to walk. You know, he could have a dystonic movement and be on the floor the next minute, so he has to use a wheelchair. And this is all within a 2-year period, so it's come on quite severely for him.
What would a typical day look like for yourself and Ellis?
Well, over the last year, obviously COVID had a big effect, so I could give you that day. But really, his day is unlike other teenagers in his age group. A lot is sleep related. Lately, food and medicine is a kind of big part. So we'll wake up after I've done a shift in school. He'll have his medicine that I have to feed him, his food to have to feed him, his drink that I have to feed him because of risk of choking. Then I have to help him dress, so wash as well. So, he's heavily reliant on an adult helping out at all times. And then if he's in school, currently he's in and out of school depending on his condition. If he's in school, he's at school all day until about 3:00. If he's not, then it's at home, a bit of a sleep, medicine, TV, sleep, food, sleep. So it's almost like a toddler in their dependency on you. It's heavily adult orientated. And it's deteriorated a lot within the last 6 months in that respect. Even though I said it's over 2 years, the last 6 months have really escalated.
With regards to medication and treatment and things like that, can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I did mean to get the medication all listed, but I'd probably bore you with each one. Mainly at the moment, we've gone through a series of medications. Currently, he's on pregabalin, clonidine, trihexyphenidyl, a company called Salinar. I can't pronounce the proper chemical name. So they all kind of control the tremors, the movements, and then he will have bucklum to kind of reduce a dystonic movement or a series of dystonic movements, usually knocks him out and then he sleeps. In the last year and a half, that's our kind of route, is just to try so many different drugs, and we have tried a lot, all having different symptoms or effects on Ellis. At one point, some of the medicine had made him choke. Some of them made him really tired. Some made him hyperactive. It was really like kind of tinkering with the amount of medicine being administered, or trying to hit certain parts of the day that it might kind of prolong the effect. We've had lots of different kind of tests. So he's had MRI scans, blood tests. The worst was the spinal puncture. Just heartbreaking to see, but it was vital that it was done. Then we've had lots of therapies, so speech therapy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, hydrotherapy, and I'm so thankful for the NHS in that respect. So, we've had our fair share of kind of treatments and avenues that we've gone up. Currently, we've been referred to Dan Lumsden in Guy St Thomas, and we're going to be looking at other tests that might kind of give us an indication to why Ellis has what he has, as well as possibly exploring deep brain stimulation, which at the time was quite a kind of relief that there was another avenue, because the medicines we were just kind of exploring and feeling that nothing was really doing anything. It does make some of the symptoms easier, but it just felt like, this is his life of just trialing medicines.
Yeah.
But then it's sunk in. Deep brain stimulation is a big thing. It's tinkering with the brain. There's lots of potential risks, but then talking amongst this community, involved with Dystonia UK, and have chatted with one or two people, not at depth, but have heard their kind of versions of their child's journeys. And one in particular was talking about deep brain stimulation, and it kind of gave me a lift of thinking, okay, that child had a good kind of result from having deep brain stimulation. So, you go through ups and downs in all of the treatments, but thankfully we are having treatments, and I always try and be positive. And it's just sometimes a waiting game, and just you could be waiting for months, and then all of a sudden, right, come in, you've got to do this. So you've got to be on your toes as well.
What about with if we were to go back a bit with diagnosis and how was that process, and did they come to the right conclusions early? Or
Ellis, when you look back, because when you go to hospital appointments, they often ask you a history, or say, like when we're speaking to Dan Lumsden for the first time, it was a kind of tell us about Ellis. And so it for me started when he was, say, about 6, 7. He was being supported in school for attention deficit. So daydreaming quite a lot. And he was really supported through school, kind of put through Action Plus, as they call it. So he would have a one-to-one, even though it wasn't official, he'd have someone looking out for him as well as other pupils. And it kind of safeguarded him and kept him secure. And he got up to year 6, started having different medication for the attention deficit. And I was very unsure about him having medicine at the time, just because you're putting a chemical into someone's body, and you just think, what's going to happen? And we tried out 1 or 2. It came to some decision that we felt it wasn't right. He went up to high school, and I think that kind of cocoon effect that he was, protected. It was a big shock then to go to high school where everything is kind of, and this is a normal school, like kind of full on 1,000+ pupils. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to organize yourself. Really big shock. And I'm not saying any of these is what has happened or helped Ellis's condition or created a condition, but it's like you start thinking and putting pieces together. And at that point, the SEN coordinator said, Ellis needs more than just someone looking out for him. He needs proper one-to-one. So we needed a statement. We had a statement, and at the same time, we were experimenting with medication, because the SEN coordinator said, for him to get a statement, if we list medication is being administered, then, it's going to give more weight to the case. And around that time, he started developing a tremor. So Parkinson's was mentioned, juvenile Parkinson's. And he was on a medication, and we were seen by pediatric nurse, and pediatric nurse was like, well, he doesn't look right. And his eyes were half masked, very slow, very more out of it than normal. So we were then referred to a consultant, pediatric neurologist, who took it off the medication. We had the MRI, we had the lumbar puncture, blood tests. And within that time, we started seeing speech therapy, because he'd lost his ability to speak. And at that point, it was like, okay, this is a little bit more than Parkinson's, because then he was starting to have little kind of movements, like almost like a tick, the hand going up in the air, that kind of thing. And then it started to really deteriorate over lockdown. Not saying that lockdown's the cause, but it's a landmark. I felt good at that time, basically, because I was at school working, but I was able to look after Ellis. We did a lot of consulting via Zoom or phone, and again, the NHS did an amazing job in making sure that we were looked after, even though we couldn't go and see them. And his speech had really gone. His walking was starting to lose his ability. And at that point, dystonia was mentioned. We never really had dystonia as his cause or it is a diagnosis. And I think that's why we've then been referred on to Dan, just so he can actually say what is the reason why this has happened. It's been a long journey, and I feel very supported for Ellis, but as a parent, the support has had to come from meeting people or talking to people, community. And at Dystonia UK were great in helping out. They had lots of podcasts, lots of online things that helped me. And then I got hold of your book, and that's helped me. And what I like about that is, we've looked at different regions around the world and how care is different, and how different outlooks on how the condition affects people. Some are rightly so, can be quite negative, and then others take the bull by the horns and say, I'm going to conquer this. So it's really good. It grounds you a little bit. And recently I've started getting involved with Dystonia Cymru, and through them, the Welsh Neurological Alliance. It can be quite hard trying to fit everything in, but I think it's mentally a good thing for me. But also I think it helps others, and it's returning the favours that I've had. I've had support of people, and I think it's nice to give back.
Going back when you're going through this sort of diagnosis phase, had you heard of dystonia before?
My brother, he had dystonia as a teenager, but not to the same extent as Ellis. He would answer a phone, and in those days we'd have the phone on the wall, so you'd have to go up and get it, and he would be stuck for 5 seconds maybe, and then come to. My kind of awareness has grown since Ellis, but I did a charity event with friends, and we went out dressed as Batman and Superman. The amount of people that asked, why are you doing this for, and mentioned dystonia, that they didn't know what dystonia was, it really hit home, just thinking how little this quite severe condition is, how little known it is as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the complete driving force behind this whole Warriors of Dystonia for me, is the fact that I can't tell people that I've got dystonia. So if I tell people I've got dystonia, they just frown. And I've done different surveys in the past and spoken to different groups of people and just said to them, what do you think dystonia actually means? What does it conjure up?
Yeah.
The responses are so varied, everything from being an eating disorder to being something that makes you tired, or hardly anyone actually knows what it is. And so that always grounded me with this feeling of, whenever I'm in an awkward situation, I can't say, oh, I'm sorry about this, it's going to take me a bit longer to do this because I've got dystonia. It's just easier to say Parkinson's because it's the closest thing I've got. And that became really frustrating. So I was like, right, I want to try and get the word, just get that word dystonia out there. And if we can get kind of a connection, I know that dystonia has got so many different ways that it affects people, which also makes it very tricky. But if we can at least set people on the right path of understanding that it's anything from mild to extremely severe involuntary muscle movements that can, go anything from spasms through to completely, immobilizing you. We can get all that summed up from that. It would be a dream. Why do you think so few people have actually heard of dystonia?
I don't know. There's so many other severe kind of conditions out there, I guess, that those are pushed a bit more. Like you said, it's so varied. Even with Ellis, you can have good days, bad days. You can have full on body movement to just maybe the mouth. Dystonia, you say the name and it doesn't really suggest what it is. And I think we just need to band it around more so people then can relate to it.
So there's a lot of people that I think don't even realize that they've got dystonia. I found it really interesting to read about musicians that they think that it's a repetitive injury. So violinists, for instance, where they have their head and they're playing the violin, that actually becomes a form of dystonia. Piano players, things like that, get hand cramps and things. Writer's cramp is actually a form of dystonia, but it's just missing that crucial word, the dystonia. So one of the things that I did notice then, and you touched on this as well, Tim, is a passion for the fundraising. I mean, what would be your greatest achievement, and have you got more fundraising or things planned?
For Dystonia, I've only got one so far because it's quite short the time that I've been involved with them. So as I said last year, a friend and I was really touched by this. A friend I hadn't seen for years. We both share an interest in triathlons, nothing major. I'm not a serious triathlon person, but I do like the individual disciplines. And so I'm in the supermarket and he said, oh, how are you? And I just said, oh, tough time at the moment. Ellis is not very good. And his heart was touched by how I described Ellis's condition and the fact that he wasn't able to go to school, he wasn't able to talk, he'd lost his ability or was losing his ability to walk. He, I think, was going through a tough time from what he was saying. COVID blew and wanted to do something, channel his energy, wanted to do a marathon. And I think he was entered for the Newport Marathon, but couldn't do it because it had to be done virtual. Right. So he said, why don't I do this marathon for Ellis? And I said, that'd be great if you could. And it didn't really think it would be as successful as it was. And that's not taken away from my friend, but it was just like, oh, great. Any money that you raise, that'd be brilliant. And then he put that post up that he was doing, and I shared it. And I think we hit £500 within 24 hours or, near it. I said to him, look, I'll support you. I wanted to get involved. So he said, okay, you could run it or cycle it. And at the time, I quite enjoyed cycling. So I was doing a lot of turbo training at home. We came up with a plan that he would run, I would cycle. And then he said, why don't we just beef it up a bit and dress up? So he said he'd be Superman and I'd be Batman. I was hoping to be Robin, really.
Little green pants.
I think probably what scared him off. So we came up with that, and we used that kind of, well, if you get us up to a certain point, then we'll definitely dress up. And I think we got up to about £3,000. So nice. That's one of the biggest fundraisers that I've done. I have done things previously, and I did do a little bit for Parkinson's, not to the same degree. I think it was maybe a 10K or a half marathon. Mm-hmm. And it was applying energy to something that was affecting my life to try and increase the awareness, but also it's channeling the kind of energy and the kind of, you're in a tough situation and you've got to have some way of getting rid of those thoughts, and running, cycling, swimming for me are all good way of processing thoughts, especially swimming, because you've just got to stay alive in the water, breathing and moving your arms. And if you don't do that, then you could drown. So my thought process is very, everything's blocked out, and then you can put into order some of the things that, a worry. And then also the relief of doing exercise helps a lot. So it was applied on quite a few different fronts that, it helped me deal with dystonia and raising awareness. And like I said, we were running in Caerphilly, and we had such a lovely reception of people, and it's such a lovely setting. And just talking about Ellis and the problem, all of a sudden it was like being in a counselling, getting stuff off my chest, but then people asking, what is dystonia? And you could really see people, even though they didn't meet Ellis, see that they kind of sympathised with what I was describing about his life, an able boy to a not able lad. So it touched a lot of hearts, and I hope that future events we can do the same. I try and fit in with Dystonia UK. August, September time is their awareness month, and we're going to try and do something around there. And hopefully this year, I tried to do it last year but didn't get far, but lighten up some of the landscapes that maybe we train around in green, just to raise awareness. It's good for Ellis as well to see that I've got something different. He sees my work, he sees my care for him, but he came along to the run that we did and was part of it, and so was the other boys. So it was nice. It became a family kind of thing. I hope some points it might inspire people, even if it's not for Dystonia UK, but for other people to raise money to help other conditions and just cope with life, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Exercise is one of my biggest escapes as well. It puts you in a meditative state because there's nothing else going on. You're focused on pushing yourself, driving yourself, and the endorphins are just unbeatable after you've done it. And you've accomplished it.
I think the connection with nature is really overmissed. We talk about pushing our bodies, or just surviving for that period of time, but you're removing yourself from a venue that possibly does become stressful, like a house. Ellis is having a spasm, or Ellis is tired. Whereas if you go out to nature, and whether it be exercise or me taking Ellis out, I think sometimes we forget all about nature, and that really is a way of bringing down stresses and just making people feel better. The freshness. Ellis loves litter picking, so we tried doing a bit of litter picking with Dystonia UK for their around the world in 80 days. It was basically trying to raise a certain amount of money. Ellis was able to do that. He's not able to do other exercises currently, but we do access the pool, and the pool has a nice effect on him. You know, he likes to float and maybe get in the jacuzzi as well.
Oh, nice. I was wondering, what sort of advice would you give to somebody that was going on the same sort of journey as yourself, as a parent with a child that's got generalized dystonia?
I think early days when we were going through visiting, I really survived by recording everything that was said, because, you know, it's going to be a long journey. I didn't know at the time, but I guess it's from my teaching days of writing things down and planning for the future that really helped. And it helps certainly in the future when you've got to fill in forms like statements or disability allowance, or, you know, all these different things that you may need to end up filling in. You've got concrete evidence. Record people's names that you visit, record their phone numbers. It's just little things like that. And that helped me at the start. And then as we kind of accepted, all right, dystonia is part of Ellis's life, then exploring the support networks. So getting in touch with a charity, whether it be Dystonia because you've got dystonia or any other conditions, see what's on their web is a great resource. Talking to people. So this in itself is therapeutic for me, but it also will help others. And I think that's a real big tool. You know, I've had mental episodes where, you know, like just maybe anxiety, stress. And I think the biggest obstacle is talking about it. And as soon as you do talk about it, a lot of stress can be relieved. And it's just getting out there, isn't it? It's just making yourself aware or others aware. Fundraising, getting involved in stuff, that's really helped me channel energy, raise awareness, again talking to other people, reading up. So your book has really helped. I'm on another book now, I can't remember the name of the person, but you know, it's just different people have different outlooks or different experiences, and the more that you can feed off those, the more that I think you understand the condition, or it does raise your awareness in terms of, like, I was just focusing on dystonia from my experience was full-on body movements, but like from reading books, it's like, oh, okay, I got big flavour from your book that there was a lot of neck related, not just from yourself, but from a lot of people you talk about. And, you know, it just kind of opens up your eyes a bit. Don't be afraid of asking questions with any of the consultants. I've kind of pushed things, and Ellis's mum has, by asking, when will we have this? When will we have that? And okay, consultants have got a big workload, but sometimes you need to know when to expect certain things or look into the future and say, okay, so where is this going to end, or what do you see? And currently Ellis is now looking at being fed via a tube. He can still eat, but there's days when he's tired or days when he's having dystonic movements that then mean fluids aren't going in, medicine's not going in, and food's not going in. So my point being that the condition can change, and you've really got to ask the questions so that it helps the child that you're looking after, or if you're suffering yourself, help yourself. I've got, like I said, involved with other groups, and it's good to know the perspective from an adult point of view compared to a child's point of view. And, you know, that I feel lucky that the experience that Ellis and I have had from a paediatric point of view seems better than some of the viewpoints that I'm having from people who are in an adult situation, whether that because it's different regions, different consultants. But yeah, it's just good to get a perspective on things.
It's something that a few people I've spoken to in the past have mentioned as well, is because of, you know, maybe different things happen with different medications, and making sure that you keep a note of those sorts of things so that, you know, if it crops up again later on, you can go, actually, no, I don't think we should try that one because of this. And
I learned from, I think it was Dan, it was one of the Dystonia UK broadcasts, and it was just like, like sometimes you think, oh, so-and-so's on this medicine, I need to be on that. And his piece of advice was, it won't always apply to different people. One, because, their conditions are different, but also their makeup is different. So it's good to have an all-rounded view, but I think you do have to believe in your consultants and what they're saying. From our point of view, we've given more than enough time on looking at the different medications. Other people have just gone from one medication to another, and they've remained on it. And it's not always the same. But I think really making sure you record everything down, because sometimes consultants will forget some of the details, and if you can be there to back up and say, well, actually, I don't think that worked that time, it helps.
What would you say you're most proud of about Ellis?
As I've said to you a couple of times throughout this now, his ability to cope with it. I mean, he's going through severe pain, and he's looking at you as if to say, oh, please help. You try and comfort, but as you know, with dystonia, it can be relentless and just take you over. But his ability to shake himself from a dystonic movement into smiling, and I always say, like 3, 2, 1, you're in the room, because he's having these dystonic movements, and then it stops, and then he looks at you, smiles, and goes, it's like kind of, what's happened? There's 3, 2, 1 in the room. And his ability to laugh at dystonia. So he gets into some weird positions, and I'll say, oh, you're doing fast bowling today, are you? Or sometimes it's almost like he's doing a ninja finger, and ninja finger, and he just laughs. I don't know. I think if you, poor kids, and you go into that kind of, it doesn't help him. So we laugh at it and we have fun. And okay, not always fun, but we try and make it fun, just to kind of get him out of the mood, I suppose. He hasn't been able to study like children his age. I mean, at one point he was in a normal school, and I was in a specialised school, and he hasn't gone the same route as these guys, but he's still achieved things through litter picking, through Duke of Edinburgh, which has been a real good focus for us. Almost sometimes forgetting about dystonia and just say, come on, let's go out and litter pick, or let's go and do some physical activity that isn't as strenuous as others doing physical activity, but it is for Ellis. And he was then helping me doing some caretaking roles, and my friend. And it's just, he's achieved things. And I think his kind of interaction with adults and how he wins people's hearts over with his smile and his personality, even though he can't speak. I think that's an amazing tool to be able to do that, and they're very proud of him.
He sounds awesome.
He's a lovely lad. I'm a lucky dad.
Before we finish up, then, Tim, is there any messages or anything you'd like to say to friends, family, or any other topics, areas you'd like to bring up?
I think I've mentioned a lot throughout, really. But Dystonia UK, the community. So first off, I was in contact with them, and then the community within it, Dystonia Cymru, yourself. I'm very thankful for the book that we read, or I read, and in fact, we're talking today. Dr. Waterden-8, his consultant, has been awesome, and really sees the child, or sees Ellis and cares for him. And it's not just a number, or it's not just a condition. He really wants to make his life better, and I think that's amazing. NHS, like I said, throughout such a hard pandemic, they've been amazing in supporting us. And recently we've been in hospital quite a lot, and just the care that is given, I think, is amazing. And sometimes I think the NHS has a bad publicity. And I just think we've got to be so thankful for what we've got in Great Britain. We could be in America and paying for our own treatments, and that doesn't always get you the treatments that you want from reading your book. Quite a few people are on an insurance scheme that doesn't cover certain conditions, or it doesn't cover certain treatments. I'd like to thank my family. My parents have been awesome. they've supported me, but they've supported the boys too. And Ellis's brothers have just been amazing, looking after him. They really are young carers and deserve praise, and I'm very proud of the two of them. And then mainly thankful to Ellis. He's got a condition that is hard work, but he's also taught me a lot. He's taught me to smile, taught me to kind of be positive and take each day as it comes rather than worrying about the past and worry about the future. He just wakes up, gets on with what's on ahead, and then that's it, ready for the next day. So yeah, very thankful for that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Warriors of Dystonia podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can reach me via the Warriors of Dystonia website, which is warriorsofdystonia.wordpress.com, or you can search for Warriors of Dystonia on Google, and that'll also bring you to my website. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, and just do a search for Warriors of Dystonia and you'll be able to find me there. I'm Carl, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much again for listening. Take care.